The signal that shook the stars. The stars over the Orion arm were quiet that night, or at least they seemed to be. Then the silence was broken by a desperate signal, a cry that spread through the void faster than thought. It came from the Zalari Empire, a proud alien civilization once feared across half the galaxy. Now their fleets were shattered, their colonies burning, and their command world surrounded by an enemy no one dared name aloud. Across countless frequencies, the same message repeated. This is the Zalari High Command, requesting immediate assistance from any allied species. We are being overrun, The transmission cut off with a static scream, followed by silence again. It wasn't just a signal, it was a plea, a cry for help that reached every corner of known space. Most species ignored it. The Galactic Council debated for hours and then did nothing. No one wanted to face the swarm, those unstoppable creatures that consumed entire star systems. Every empire that had fought them had been erased. To help the Zalari was to share their fate, but deep in the forgotten corner of the galaxy, on a blue world called Earth, the signal was heard by someone unexpected. Humanity had been silent for almost a century. After the Great Exodus, they had withdrawn from galactic affairs, tired of endless wars and political games. Most aliens believed humans were extinct or hiding behind some secret veil. They had forgotten what humans were capable of. In a command bunker beneath the Andes, old communication systems flickered to life. Admiral Rhea Solis, commander of the Terran defense fleet, stood in front of the holographic display, watching the trembling alien message repeat. Her eyes narrowed. Open the archives, she ordered, her voice calm but cold. Search for the Zalari coordinates, ma'am, said a young officer. That region is 40,000 light-years away. Rhea didn't look away from the screen. Then we'd better start moving, she said behind her. The old Terran insignia glowed faintly. A silver eagle wrapped around a burning star. Outside the bunker, the Earth's night sky shimmered with something unseen for a long time. Massive orbital docks began to light up. One after another beneath the Pacific, hidden shipyards rumbled to life deep in the lunar basin. Reactors roared awake, and from Mars to Titan, sleeping war machines stirred like ancient gods rising from the grave. The first fleet was called the Iron Dawn. 30 dreadnoughts, 50 cruisers, and thousands of smaller escorts. Each ship bore the same message painted across its hull. For humanity, for all. They were not just preparing for war. They were answering a call that echoed through their very blood. As the armada assembled, Rhea stood before her crew. She looked at them, veterans, descendants of warriors, engineers, and explorers, and said, "The galaxy left us to die once. Remember that?" She began, her voice steady but fierce. "They thought humanity was gone, that we were weak, forgotten, irrelevant." She paused and pointed at the holographic map where the Zalari system blinked in red. "But someone out there still remembers what we are capable of." Her words hung in the air like fire. "Prepare the fleet," she said finally. "Humanity is going back to war." And with that, the engines of the Iron Dawn thundered to life. The ground shook, the oceans trembled, and the stars above seemed to move. Because for the first time in 100 years, Earth had awakened. And the galaxy, though it didn't yet know it, was about to remember why humanity had once been feared. The fall of the Zalari. The Zalari homeworld burned beneath a blood-red sky. Cities that once floated on oceans of crystal now sank into black smoke and molten glass. Their proud defense fleet, one of the largest in the galaxy, lay scattered across orbit. Torn apart like paper before a storm, the swarm had arrived, and there was nothing left to stop them on the surface. The Zalari High Council's last bunker trembled with every impact. Inside, panic echoed through metallic halls. "Our fleets are gone," one officer cried. "The capital shipyard was destroyed an hour ago," another shouted. "Where is the Galactic Council's aid?" "They promised reinforcements." But everyone in the room knew the truth. The galaxy had abandoned them. In the midst of chaos, Counselor Vela stood alone by the communication console. She had sent the distress signal herself, hoping against reason that someone, anyone would answer. Now, she stared at the flickering console as the signal repeated into the void. Her 4 trembling hands gripped the metal edge. "Someone must hear us," she whispered. "Someone must still care." But the only response was static. Outside, thunderous roars of the swarm filled the sky. Massive bioships descended like living meteors, each one a monstrous creature of armor and rage. Feeding on destruction itself, the ground split, fire rained, and entire cities vanished under a tide of darkness. Then suddenly one of the technicians gasped. "Counselor, the beacon. Someone's answering." Vela turned sharply, her violet eyes wide. "Who? Which empire?" The technician hesitated, his mandibles twitching. It's not any empire, ma'am, the signal signature. It's Terran." For a moment, the bunker fell silent. "Terran?" someone whispered, disbelief mixing with fear. "Humans? They vanished generations ago." Before anyone could respond, the holographic display lit up. A woman appeared, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, wearing a black uniform marked with an old human crest. "This is Admiral Rhea Solis of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said calmly. "Your message was received. Hold your position." Vela couldn't believe it. "Humans? You're alive?" Rhea's expression didn't change. "Alive," she said. "And en route." The connection cut off, replaced by coordinates and a countdown. The Terran fleet would arrive in less than 12 hours. But for the Zilari, 12 hours was a lifetime under the swarm's assault outside. The sky turned crimson again as new swarm hive ships broke through the atmosphere. Their shrieks filled the air like the cries of 1,000 dying worlds. Vela looked at the small group of survivors, soldiers, scientists, children. "This is our last day," she said quietly. "But at least someone heard us." She turned toward the sky, where the clouds glowed with the fire of falling ships. "If the humans truly return, then perhaps the galaxy still has hope. Far beyond their system, in the cold black of deep space, humanity's armada moved like a storm of steel and fury. The Iron Dawn and her sister ships warped through slipspace tunnels, leaving trails of light behind them in the command deck. Admiral Rhea stood watching the data streams. Her fleet was ready, every ship bristling with new generation plasma lances, AI-guided kinetic cannons and shield cores running at impossible capacity. This was not the same humanity the galaxy remembered. This was something reborn, hardened, silent, unstoppable. ETA? Rhea asked. 11 hours, 38 minutes, replied her navigation officer. Rhea nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the burning system ahead. "Open a fleet-wide channel," she ordered. Her voice carried across every ship, from the smallest escort to the mighty dreadnoughts. "This isn't a rescue mission," she said. "This is a reminder." Her crew stood silent, listening. "They forgot us, left us behind, and wrote us out of their history," Rhea continued. "But tonight, humanity writes its own chapter, and in fire," the fleet responded with a single unified transmission. "For humanity, for all." Their voices thundered across the comms like the beating of a war drum, and as the countdown continued, the human armada tore through space, heading straight for the dying light of the Zilari world. Back on the planet, Counselor Vela stood on the command balcony, watching the swarm darken the horizon. For the first time in days, she smiled faintly. "Come then, humans," she whispered. "Show us what legends are made of." And far away, just beyond the edge of the system, humanity's war fleet exited warp. Dozens of colossal ships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls glowing with the blue fire of ancient engines. The void trembled as they arrived, and for the first time in a millennium, the galaxy saw the return of Earth's fury. Humanity had answered the call, and this time, they weren't coming to beg. They were coming to remind the stars who ruled the dark. The sky of fire. The stars above the Zilari world flared to life with sudden brilliance. Sensors across the planet went wild, alarms screamed, and every living thing looked upward for a heartbeat. The heavens burned brighter than the twin suns, then shadows moved within that light, vast. Cold silhouettes of steel and wrath. The humans had arrived. Dozens of colossal Terran warships dropped out of slipspace in perfect synchronization, their hulls glowing with the white-blue burn of hyper-reactor cores. The lead dreadnought, Iron Dawn, loomed larger than a continent. Her hull streaked with old scars and the names of battles forgotten by every alien historian. Behind her, the fleet spread out like a wall of thunder, each ship powered by centuries of dormant vengeance. On the surface, Counselor Vela watched through a cracked dome. Her voice trembled. They came. The humans actually came. Around her, the surviving Zilari soldiers and citizens stared in disbelief. For generations, they had spoken of humans as myths, as dangerous ghosts from a darker time. Now those ghosts stood between them and annihilation. High above, Admiral Rhea Solis surveyed the burning world from her command deck. The holographic map filled with red markers, swarm hive ships, assault drones, planetary spore carriers, spreading like infection across orbit. Status, she demanded. Enemy biomass covering 80% of upper atmosphere, replied her tactical officer. They've established orbital nests. Commander? Ria's eyes narrowed. Not for long, she said. Begin Operation Dawnfire. Her orders unleashed a storm. Thousands of Terran gun batteries rotated into position, plasma coils screaming as they charged. Artificial intelligence cores linked across the fleet, calculating firing solutions in microseconds. The silence of space was shattered by a blinding flash. In that instant, the sky became a forge. Rivers of plasma streaked downward, cutting through the swarm's monstrous ships like blades through cloth. The entire planet's horizon glowed red and gold, the air cracked, oceans boiled, and even orbit seemed to tremble. From the ground, it looked as if the stars themselves were falling. Solari soldiers fell to their knees, whispering ancient prayers to whatever gods might still listen. Some cried. Others simply watched in awe as the monsters that had devoured their world were turned to ash. Every strike was precise, every blast fueled by a fury that had slept for 100 years. Inside the flagship, Ria stood unblinking. Her voice was cold as iron. Phase 2. Drop the Titans. Hatches opened across the lower decks of the Terran dreadnoughts. Out from them descended giant mech platforms, titanic exosuits known as Titans of Sol. Each one carried enough firepower to level cities. Their armor forged from neutron alloys and dark matter plating. They fell through the atmosphere like meteors, trailing flames and thunder when they landed. The world shook. The swarm, endless and raging, turned toward the new arrivals. Tide after tide of bio-creatures charged the metal giants, screaming as they surged across burning plains. But the Titans did not retreat. Their eyes glowed blue, and their weapons hummed with restrained destruction. Then silence him before they unleashed devastation. Rail cannons fired hypersonic rounds that cracked the very air. Flamethrowers turned the swarm into molten rivers, and through it all, the human soldiers inside those mechs spoke one single phrase over comms: for humanity, for all. The Zalari survivors, hiding in ruined bunkers, watched in disbelief. The humans weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting as if every alien life mattered. It was something the galaxy had forgotten. The strange human ability to care even for those who once feared them. Above, the swarm's command hive, a massive black sphere miles wide, tried to retreat into orbit. Its carapace split open, revealing the pulsing heart of the invasion. The Queen Core. Ria saw it on her display. Target that thing, she said quietly. Let them remember why they should have left Earth alone. The Iron Dawn's main cannon powered up. The Helios Lance, a weapon banned by the Galactic Council ages ago. Its charge filled space with a rising hum that felt like the breath of a god. Then it fired, a white beam pierced the void. The Queen Core screamed, a sound that echoed even through the vacuum. Then silence, followed by a shockwave so massive it lit the atmosphere for hours. When the light faded, there was nothing left of the swarm fleet. Only drifting ash and molten debris, the Zalari homeworld was scarred, but alive on the surface as the smoke cleared. Counselor Vela looked up at the Terran ships shining above like new constellations. Her voice broke. They saved us, someone beside her whispered. No, they reminded us. In orbit, Admiral Ria stood silently. Watching the now quiet world, she didn't smile. She only said one thing to her crew. Mark the system, she ordered. Another world remembers humanity, and deep within the void, the galaxy began to whisper again. The humans had returned, and they had brought fire with them. The message to the galaxy. The battle was over, but the echoes of war still rolled across the stars. Where the swarm had once darkened the heavens, only drifting embers now floated, glowing faintly against the cold void. The Zalari world was half ruined, continents scorched, oceans steaming, cities shattered, yet it still stood, and that was something no one had thought possible. At the edge of the system, the Terran fleet hung in silence, like steel guardians watching a graveyard. Within the flagship Iron Dawn, Admiral Ria Solis stood before the viewing deck, hands clasped behind her back, her eyes reflecting the dying light of battle. Damage reports? She asked quietly. Minimal, her officer replied. Fleet integrity remains above 95%. All enemy signatures neutralized. Ria nodded once, her expression unreadable. Then open a wideband transmission, she said. We're sending a message. The communications officer hesitated. To the Council, Admiral. Rhea turned slowly, her gaze sharp. To everyone, she said. Let the galaxy know humanity is awake. The holo emitters came online, broadcasting across hundreds of systems simultaneously, on every world that had received the Zelleri's earlier distress call, even those who ignored it. Screens flickered and static cleared. Then an image appeared, Admiral Rhea Solis, standing before the burning horizon of the Zellari homeworld. Behind her, the Terran flag rippled against a field of stars. This is Admiral Rhea Solis of the Terran Defense Fleet. Her voice carried across the stars. Calm but laced with power. Your council refused to act. Your fleets abandoned your allies and entire civilizations have paid the price. She paused, letting her words burn into every ear that heard them. Humanity will not forget what we have seen, nor will we allow this to happen again. Her gaze hardened. We do not ask for permission. We do not seek approval. We act. She looked straight into the camera. If your worlds cry for help, we will hear them. If your enemies rise, we will face them. If your monsters devour your people, we will stand between them and the dark. Rhea's tone dropped lower, steady as the hum of an engine before war. But if you betray us, or harm what we protect, know this. Humanity will come for you too. Across the galaxy, her message spread like wildfire. On the trade worlds of the Council, diplomats froze mid-speech. In the war halls of the Krovan Dominion, generals exchanged fearful glances in the distant void. Even the silent species, those who spoke through energy or thought, paused their signals to listen. The humans had not just returned. They had declared themselves protectors and executioners and of balance. Back on the Zellari homeworld, Counselor Vela listened to the message with tears running down her scarred face. She had lived long enough to see her world burned, and now reborn in the same breath, she whispered to herself. The humans. They came not for power, but for meaning. Above her, Terran dropships descended, carrying medical drones and engineers. The humans were rebuilding the very cities they had just saved. They worked silently, efficiently, soldiers alongside scientists, men and women covered in soot and starlight. One Zellari child tugged on a soldier's arm and asked, Why did you help us? The soldier knelt and smiled softly. Because once, no one helped us, he said, far away in the shining halls of the Galactic Council. Fear settled like frost. Dozens of alien delegates shouted at once, their voices overlapping. They broke every treaty. They used banned weapons. They'll bring war upon us all? But behind the noise, the elder speaker, the ancient being who had led the council for centuries, raised his translucent hand. Silence, he said slowly. They have reminded us who they are. He turned toward the holographic image of Earth, faintly glowing on the galactic map. For 100 years, we forgot the Terrans, he murmured. We thought them extinct or isolated. Or irrelevant, he looked up, his many eyes glowing faintly. But I remember the day they first reached the stars, he said. They do not conquer for empire. They fight for the memory of loss. And somewhere deep within the shadows of the galaxy, unseen watchers stirred. Warlords, hive queens, artificial gods, all listening to the human voice echoing across the stars. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer silent, no longer hiding, no longer waiting. They had come back to rewrite the rules, to protect those who couldn't, and to punish those who dared threaten the light again. In the quiet of the command deck, Admiral Rhea looked out once more at the endless dark. Message delivered, her officer said. Rhea nodded. Then mark the coordinates, she replied softly. Earth remembers its children. The Iron Dawn turned slowly, engines igniting with golden fire. The human fleet began to move again, disappearing into the deep black between the stars. Wherever there was a cry for help, they would go, and wherever there was silence, they would bring thunder, because the galaxy had cried for help. And humanity, for the first time in a century, had answered with an entire war fleet. The return of humanity. The galaxy did not sleep after that transmission. Every corner of known space trembled under whispers of the same three words. The humans returned. In the halls of empires, in the dens of pirates, in the void between forgotten suns, that phrase carried both fear and hope. For some it meant salvation, for others reckoning. Weeks had passed since the Zolari rescue, and still the stars burned with the memory of Terran fire. In the heart of the Sol system, Earth glowed alive once more. Its shipyards blazing day and night where once rust and silence ruled. Now stood fleets reborn, warships rising like mountains, new colonies awakening on Mars, Titan, and Europa. Humanity had found purpose again, and this time, they were not building to conquer. They were building to protect. Inside the orbital citadel above Earth, Admiral Rhea Solis stood before a massive star map. Lines of blue light stretched across the galaxy. Distress calls, invasion reports, whispers of rebellion. 17 new requests for aid, said her aide. Rhea's eyes moved from one glowing system to another. 17 cries for help. And the Council still debates protocols, she said coldly. Let them debate, her aide replied. We move. Rhea turned to face him. No, she said. We don't move blindly. Not this time. Her reflection shimmered in the glass, the face of a woman who had seen too much war and too many graves. Humanity must not become what it once fought against, she murmured. She tapped the holographic map, zooming in on one particular cluster, the Carith Nebula, where reports of the swarm's resurgence had begun again. They'll never stop, you know, her aide said quietly. Neither will we, Rhea replied. Far beyond the galactic core in a dark throne world, alien leaders gathered in secret, rulers of empires that once mocked the humans, now fearing their return. The Terrans defy our laws, hissed one. They destroyed the Queen Core using forbidden technology. They have no right to claim protector status, another growled. But a silent figure cloaked in starlight spoke calmly. They have already claimed it, he said, and every world that hears them joins their banner willingly. He leaned forward, his many eyes gleaming. You cannot stop what moves in their hearts, because humans don't fight for dominance. They fight for meaning. At that same moment, across 1,000 light-years, a battered refugee convoy drifted through space, ships belonging to a forgotten species called the Dravens, hunted by raiders and the swarm alike. Their engines flickered, food supplies gone, children crying in the dark when hope finally died. Their sensors caught a signal, faint, rhythmic, human. Unidentified fleet, a voice echoed through the comms. This is the Terran Defense Armada, broadcasting safe harbor coordinates. Moments later, massive human warships dropped out of slipspace, their silhouettes filling the void like guardian angels made of iron and light. The Dravens wept as tractor beams pulled them to safety. For the first time in their lives, they were not prey. In the Iron Dawn's command deck, Admiral Rhea watched the rescue unfold. A small smile touched her lips, rare and tired. Mark them as Terran allies, she said. The officer beside her hesitated. They're not council members. Ma'am, Rhea's tone turned firm. They don't have to be. Back on Earth, the message was clear. Humanity had changed. No longer the reckless conquerors of old, no longer the forgotten hermits of the void. They had become something else, a storm that sheltered instead of destroyed, a force that built hope out of ashes, but not everyone welcomed it in secret. The Galactic Council prepared a declaration to summon humanity, demand their disarmament, and remind them of galactic law. When the envoy arrived at Earth, they expected a fearful, desperate race. Instead, they found the skies filled with armadas and the cities lit like suns. And in the central hall of the Terran Citadel, Admiral Rhea stood waiting, her black uniform gleaming beneath the holographic stars. The alien delegate bowed stiffly. You are expanding too quickly, he said. Your fleet presence threatens balance. Rhea's eyes met his, calm and unblinking. Balance, she said softly. You mean the silence you call peace? She stepped closer. We watched for 100 years while you argued, while worlds burned, while innocent lives turned to dust, and you call that balance? Her voice grew colder. We don't answer to your fear anymore, the delegate trembled. You risk war, he warned. Rhea smiled faintly. We don't risk it, she said. We remember it outside. A fleet of human ships rose from orbit like stars lifting into dawn. Their hulls bore a single symbol, a burning star surrounded by an open hand. Not a weapon, but a promise across the galaxy. Countless civilizations watched those ships depart. Some whispered in fear, some prayed in gratitude, and somewhere in the deep unknown, a dark intelligence stirred, watching, learning, waiting. Because if humanity had returned to protect the galaxy, there were still those who would test what that protection truly meant. As the iron dawn disappeared into the stars once more, Ria's voice echoed through the fleet. Calm and resolute, we will go where others run. We will stand where others fall. And when the galaxy cries again, we will answer. She turned toward the endless expanse of light ahead. Because we are human, she whispered. And we remember. The engines roared, stars stretched, and the fleet vanished into the dark behind them. The void shimmered with a faint golden glow, the mark of a species reborn, and somewhere across the silent stars the galaxy breathed a single truth once more. When humanity answers a cry for help, the stars themselves burn brighter,